How do you spot early signs of dementia? And what are the ones most people miss? If you're asking that right now, it's probably because something happened that made you stop for a second. Maybe it was just a look, a pause in a conversation, or someone you love forgetting something that felt too important to forget. You're not overreacting. You're paying attention. And that's exactly what could make all the difference. See, dementia doesn't usually start the way people think. It's not like a light switch turning off overnight. It's more like hairline cracks in glass, tiny, almost invisible at first, but if you don't notice, they spread. And then it's much harder to fix. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 early signs. The ones even most seniors, and sometimes even doctors, don't catch. We'll start with 2 of the clearest ones. And later, I'll show you the most silent sign of all. You know what I hear most when families come to see me? They say, "We thought it was just aging. We didn't want to make a big deal out of it." And honestly, I get it. Nobody wants to overreact. Nobody wants to scare a loved one. So you tell yourself, it's fine. It's just a senior moment. But here's the thing. That moment might be your brain waving a small red flag. And if you wait for it to wave a bigger one, that's when you've already lost precious time. Most people miss the early signs because they're quiet. They don't come with pain. They don't stop your day. They just slip in. That's why I want to give you something you can hold on to right now. Let's start with one of the easiest to spot, and the hardest to admit when it happens. Have you ever been right in the middle of a conversation? You're talking about your granddaughter, or your neighbor, or someone you've known for years. And suddenly, the name is just gone. Not sitting on the tip of your tongue. Not waiting to pop back in a second later. Just gone. That's different from the kind of forgetting we all do. See, with normal aging, your brain misplaces a name for a few seconds, then finds it like pulling a file from the back of a drawer. You might even laugh and say, "Oh, there it is." But with dementia's early changes, it's not a misfiled folder. It's like that file never existed in the drawer at all. You're left flipping through empty pages. This happens because the hippocampus, the part of your brain that organizes and stores names, isn't sending the signal the way it used to. Think of it like the index in a book. If the index is broken, you can have the information, but you can't find it when you need it. Now, here's why this matters. If this happens once in a blue moon, it's not a big deal. But if you notice it happening more than once in a couple of weeks, especially with people or places that should be second nature, that's when you want to pay attention. And memory isn't the only thing that changes early on. Sometimes, the sign is about where you are, and whether your brain can still find its way home. Picture this. You've lived in the same neighborhood for 20 years. You know every street, every turn, the shortcut to the grocery store. But one afternoon, you're driving home. And for a few seconds, nothing looks right. You're not sure if you should turn left or keep going straight. Now, everyone gets turned around once in a while. Maybe there's road construction. Maybe you're just distracted. But here's the difference, with normal aging, your brain snaps back fast. You see one landmark and you go, "Oh yeah, I know where I am." With early dementia, that snapback doesn't happen right away. It's like your brain's GPS has a few streets missing, and it needs extra time to reroute. This can be subtle. Sometimes it's just walking into the wrong aisle in the supermarket and feeling like you're in the wrong store. Other times, it's pulling into the wrong driveway. The part of your brain that builds your internal map, your sense of direction, starts to lose connections. And when that happens, it's not just about memory. It's about orientation. Knowing where you are in space, and how to get to where you need to be. And that leads us to something even more invisible. Because dementia isn't just about remembering or finding your way. It can show up in the way you feel, and how you react to the world around you. Sometimes, the first thing families notice isn't memory at all. It's mood. I've had families tell me, "Dad's been more short-tempered lately," or "Mom just seems anxious for no reason." And they'll say, "That's not like them." Now sure, we all have off days. We get stressed. We get frustrated. But with early dementia, these shifts can come out of nowhere. And they can be stronger than you'd expect for the situation. One man I worked with snapped at his daughter for asking if he wanted coffee. He wasn't angry about the coffee, his brain was processing the moment differently. That's because dementia can affect the limbic system, the part of your brain that helps regulate emotion. When those circuits are disrupted, it's like the volume knob on your feelings gets turned way up. Or way down. Without your control. This sign can be tricky. It's easy to blame it on stress, or bad sleep, or even just getting grumpy with age. But if the change is sudden, and it doesn't match the person you've known for years, it's worth paying attention. And if joy starts to fade, or the spark in their eyes seems dimmer, that's when I start looking even closer, because it can mean something deeper is shifting. And that shift can sometimes take away more than just mood. It can take away the joy in the things they once loved. Think about something you truly love doing. Maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's playing cards with friends. Maybe it's baking that one recipe everyone asks for. Now imagine one day, you just stop. Not because you're too busy. Not because you're tired of it. You just don't feel like it anymore. I've seen this happen. One of my patients used to fish every Saturday morning. Didn't matter if it was hot, cold, raining, he was out on that lake. And then, out of nowhere, the gear stayed in the garage. He couldn't explain why. He'd just shrug and say, "I don't know. I'm not into it." Here's why that matters. Our brain has a built-in reward system, it's what makes those activities feel satisfying. When dementia starts to interfere with that system, the things that once lit you up don't light you up anymore. It's easy to mistake this for a bad mood or boredom. But if it's a sudden, lasting change, especially alongside other signs, it's worth looking closer. And when someone starts stepping away from what they love, you might also notice they're struggling in another area, keeping up with a conversation or following a simple story. Ever start telling someone a story, and halfway through, you see it in their eyes, they're lost? Or you're watching a TV show together, and after just a few minutes they ask, "Wait, what's going on?" Sure, we all zone out sometimes. We get distracted. We miss a detail. But here's the difference, with early dementia, catching up isn't so easy. It's like trying to watch a movie when scenes keep getting skipped. What's really happening? The brain's working memory, the part that holds onto information just long enough to connect the dots, starts to slow down. And when it can't hold those pieces together, the whole picture feels fuzzy. I remember one man who loved his mystery novels. He'd finish them in a day. Then one afternoon, he closed a book halfway through and said, "I can't keep track of who's who anymore. It's embarrassing." And that's the thing. People get good at hiding this sign. They laugh it off, change the subject, or let someone else carry the conversation. But when it keeps happening, it's more than distraction, it's your brain quietly asking for help. And sometimes, that help is needed for something that doesn't even seem memory-related. Like where you left your car keys. We all misplace things. Keys in your coat pocket. Your phone between the couch cushions. But early dementia can take this to a whole different level. Like finding your glasses in the fridge. Or the TV remote in the bathroom. It's not just forgetting where you put it. It's putting it somewhere that makes no sense, because the brain's link between the object and its purpose isn't firing the way it should. One of my patients once put a carton of milk in the pantry, and when her daughter asked why, she looked genuinely confused. To her, in that moment, it didn't feel wrong. This happens when the brain's organizational wiring, the part that sorts and files everyday actions, starts to break down. It's like your mental filing cabinet suddenly decides to toss documents in random drawers. Now, everyone will have an off day. But when these misplacements happen often, and especially when they come with other signs we've talked about, that's when you have to take notice. Because the last sign on our list isn't just the most overlooked. It's the one even doctors sometimes miss until much later, and by then, the clock has already been ticking. Here's one that sneaks by almost everyone. Difficulty making simple, everyday decisions. I'm not talking about big life choices. I mean the little ones: what to eat for lunch, which shirt to wear, whether to turn left or right leaving the driveway. With normal aging, you might take a second to think. But you still get there. With early dementia, the hesitation can stretch. And you see this kind of quiet frustration build. It's not that they don't care, it's that the brain's decision-making center, the frontal lobe, isn't processing the options the way it used to. One gentleman I saw used to order the same breakfast every morning for years. Then, one day, he stared at the menu for nearly 10 minutes. And finally said, "I'll just have what you're having." These small pauses can be easy to brush off. You think, maybe they're just tired. But when those pauses become part of the daily routine, it's a signal. And if even one or two of the signs we've talked about are starting to sound familiar, there's something you need to know: the timing of what you do next is everything. Here's the truth most people don't hear soon enough. There's a window, a short one, where you can make the biggest difference. We call it the early window. It's those first 6 to 12 months after the earliest signs show up. And during that time, the right steps can slow things down, sometimes by years. I've seen it happen. One of my patients, Lisa, noticed her mom was mixing up names at church, and once got turned around walking to the grocery store she'd been to her whole life. Instead of waiting, Lisa brought her in for a full evaluation. We caught the changes early. Her mom started a tailored activity plan, adjusted her diet, and got regular check-ins on her brain health. 5 years later, she's still gardening. She still remembers her grandchildren's birthdays. And she's still making her famous peach cobbler. That's what the early window can give you: more good years, more shared memories, more time to live your life the way you want. The hardest part? Most people miss that window. Not because they didn't care, but because they waited for something big enough to act on. So if even a couple of the signs we've talked about sound familiar, now is the time to pay attention. Not next year. Not when it gets worse. And the good news is, there are daily habits that can help protect your brain, and they're simpler than you might think. You don't need a complicated plan to help your brain. Honestly, the best things you can do are small. And you can start them today. Number 1, challenge your brain. Read a few pages of a book. Try a puzzle. Learn something new, even a recipe or a card game. It's like giving your brain a little stretch every day, keeping those mental pathways active and strong. Number 2, get moving. It doesn't have to be a big workout. A walk around the block, some light stretching, even dancing to your favorite song in the kitchen counts. Movement gets your blood flowing, and that blood is carrying oxygen and nutrients straight to your brain. Number 3, eat for your brain's blood flow. That means more fresh veggies, berries, nuts, and less heavy processed stuff. Think of it like keeping the roads in your brain clear, so signals can travel fast without hitting traffic. These 3 things don't take hours out of your day. But if you do them most days, they add up, and they protect what matters most. And if you've already noticed a few early signs, it's not too late. These habits can still help you hold on to your memory, your independence, and all the little moments that make life feel like yours. If you've heard even one sign today that feels familiar, don't ignore it. Your brain's way of asking for help can be quiet, but the sooner you listen, the more time you give yourself to act. You are not broken. You are not losing yourself. You're simply at a point where the right attention can make all the difference. And here's what I want you to remember: every memory you protect is a piece of your life you get to keep living. That's worth fighting for. If this video made you think of someone you love, share it with them. It might be the nudge they need to notice a sign. And catch it while there's still time. Because the truth is, dementia doesn't take everything at once. And with the right steps, you can slow it down, and hold on to what matters most. When we started, I asked the same question you might be asking right now: how do you spot the early signs of dementia? And what are the ones most people miss? Now you know them. 7 small changes that can mean so much more than they seem. Some are easy to see. Others are quiet, hidden, and easy to dismiss. But here's the thing: knowing is only the first step. What you do next is what truly matters. I've seen people catch these signs early and gain years of memories, years of laughter, years of ordinary days that became extraordinary just because they still had them. So take what you've learned today and pay attention to yourself, to the people you love. Because every moment you protect is another moment you get to live.